Well, we're coming to the end of a magical part of the football season. That is the preseason. There's 1 week left of fall camp, and then we're into week one. And a lot of teams are already in week one right now because the week zero games are this coming Saturday. What a time to be alive. What a time to be a college football fan. But this time of year, for many fan bases, for all fan bases, is a time of hopes, fantasies, dreams, and then soon it'll be a time of realities, schedules, rosters, and those things don't always meet in the middle. So right now we have high hopes for Texas A&M. We have maybe even high expectations. But what does a realistic outlook on 2023's football season look like? Let's explore that today. I'm going to talk about some negatives. I'm going to talk about some positives. We're going to try to meet them, merge them, and see what a realistic outlook on the year looks like. So let's start with some negatives. This team, as you know, was 5-7 last year. So something that many people worry about with losing teams is the team forming a habit of losing. Do their daily habits result in winning? Do their daily habits construct a winning atmosphere for a football team? Obviously, last year, that answer was no. You have a 6-game losing streak. You have an infamous loss to App State. Did they shake the habit versus LSU, or was that an anomaly? Can they make that the habit? Whatever habits resulted in their win versus LSU, can that be the personality of the football team for a full season? So can this team shake the habit of losing? Now, second, and much more tangible than that, is just the sheer outlook on the schedule this year. This is a schedule with some very, very deep trenches. Although there are many winnable games on this schedule, some of the away games are extremely difficult for Texas A&M. So obviously you start the year out, second week of the year, on the road versus a beatable Miami team. But you could also lose that game. It's a young team. We'll get into the roster in a minute. It's a young team with not a lot of success under their belts, but a lot of experience. Can they turn that experience into a win in week 2? Because if they don't beat Miami, how are you feeling versus Arkansas? How are you feeling versus South Carolina? How are you feeling versus Bama and Tennessee? Hell, how are you feeling versus Auburn? You're probably not feeling as good as you would if Texas A&M wins in week 2. So that's a tough game. They also have to go on the road versus Ole Miss, a team who has mastered the hurry up and run offense. Quinshon Judkins and company ran all over Texas A&M last year. Texas A&M, who was bottom 20 in stopping the run. That's a really difficult road environment to begin with. Couple that with the fact that they seem to use Texas A&M's kryptonite as their best weapon. A&M has not won in Baton Rouge since joining the SEC. Now, you can argue they won in 2021. The scoreboard will tell you otherwise. You may have an argument with that fumble. They still have not won in Baton Rouge. They end the season at LSU. Can they shake that bug? And then the game I'm touting is the most difficult on the schedule by a mile at Tennessee the week after A&M plays Alabama and Tennessee has a bye week. So they get an extra week to prepare for A&M while A&M's busy with a little thing called Nick Saban in Alabama. Even in the highest possible outlook, even if Texas A&M hits its absolute ceiling on the season, that's a really tough game to call a win, at least at this point. That's a very, very difficult scheduling 1-2 punch right there, Alabama into Tennessee. So it's going to be really hard to win those games, but then you still have Mississippi State, Arkansas, South Carolina, Auburn. You still have those games that A&M has historically slipped up on now and then, even if they're favored to win them. So the schedule has some very difficult built-in roadblocks, and then A&M has to overcome the hurdle of just beating all the teams they're supposed to, which seems like it hasn't really happened since 2020. So that's 2 years of coming up short in games you don't think they should come up short in. Schedule is very difficult. So can A&M shake that habit of losing? And can A&M win the games they're supposed to on the year? And let's talk about the troops they're going to be doing that with. Let's break down a little bit of this roster and talk about some realistic expectations on the year. Now, in doing this, there's a lot of reason for hope just given the personnel of this team. So starting off, what this team needs to have, like the end-all be-all. This is one non-negotiable aspect of this team. Texas A&M needs better and more consistent quarterback play. I'm not even saying star quarterback play. I'm just saying consistently solid quarterback play. We really think we're going to get at least improved quarterback play on the year, but we don't know for sure yet if it's going to be solid to great. I know we're not going to get what we had with the ups and downs of the quarterback room last year, with players in, players out, new starter several times throughout the year. We're at least hopeful not to get that, barring any kind of unexpected injury, which just happens in this sport. But as it stands going into the year, you feel good in knowing that A&M will have a starter from the start to the finish of the year. Because whoever wins that battle, we think it's going to be Connor Wigman, is going to be the quarterback for the whole year. Now, a solid quarterback will take this team far. But let's just imagine that Connor Wigman becomes what his 5-star high school tape indicated he could become, and that's a superstar. The sky's the limit for this team. Because this quarterback has weapons. We know what the receiver room is. I won't spend a lot of time talking about that because I think that's one of the most safe and secure aspects of this team, at least in regards to being a serviceable position group. This quarterback needs an offensive line that is good and consistent and has some continuity from week to week, because last year Texas A&M did not have that. But I think not having that last year makes this offensive line that much better this year, because you have a healthy starting five. And let's talk about Bryce Foster for a second, the starting center. One of the most talented players on this football team. I know a lot of people are concerned that he's missing practice. Keep in mind that he's coming off of a torn ACL. That's a bit of a significant injury if you didn't know. There's a really good chance they're just being really cautious with him. He is going to be a star on this football team. He has to be. So don't take too much negative out of him missing practices, because he has practiced this fall camp. You know, a couple of media practices he wasn't practicing. He has been practicing, and for now we have to trust Jimbo's word that this team is one of the most healthiest teams he's had in a long time. So let's just take that, you know, as caution, because he is coming off of that major knee injury. But overall, this offensive line is healthy, especially compared to last year where players were in and out all year. You had lineup changes week to week. And then when there was finally a little bit of consistency late in the year, this offensive line was the best that it had been all year. So you have your starting five left to right. But now you have the Jordan Mokos with starting experience. You have Aggie with starting experience. You have Cam Dewberry bust onto the scene last year as a freshman. Now maybe the best, most consistent O-lineman on this team. Chase Basantis is absolutely turning heads. Mark Naboo has been filling in for a lot of injured players. Remington Strickland has been there for years. Crownover has drawn praises from the coaches. Shanahan has moved his way up the depth chart throughout fall, at least from what we've seen and know. This offensive line is the most deep it's been maybe since Jimbo has been at Texas A&M. And we can be confident if there's a starting five there that can start game to game, keep the chemistry going. This offensive line will be improved. Now, the amount to which it improves will have a significant impact on how good this offense will be. But I don't think we're going to have the same issues that we saw the last 2 years with the offensive line. I don't think we're going to see assignment breakdown after assignment breakdown that we saw at times last year. The Arkansas game comes to mind where they just lived in the backfield. The whole season was an issue at offensive line. So there will be offensive line improvement. And there will be quarterback stability. The question is, how high can they go on the year? Because like I said, if Connor Wigman reaches that superstar status, sky's the limit for the offense. I'll talk about coaching in a bit, but there's obviously a shakeup there too. Now on the defensive side of the ball, the issue last year was the run-stop game. They were like 123rd in stopping the run in all of football. That's bottom 20 or worse. That's really bad at stopping the run. And yes, you had a good pass stop defense, but why are people going to pass on you when they can just run for 300 yards? So you have to take that with a grain of salt. Now, I do think this pass defense is very solid. They have depth. They have superstar talent, young talent that proved to be really damn good last year. I think Bryce Anderson's about to have a breakout year. But how good can this run-stop defense be? Because last year you had McKinley Jackson, Fadil Diggs miss significant chunks of the year. They're both healthy. And all the players that had to fill in more than expected last year That's going to pay dividends this year because they had to pay their dues last year. They learned the hard way last year. They got beat time and time again. Gap assignment and strength was definitely an issue on the defensive line last year. So all those players are going to level up, and then you get your senior leaders back. So there's really good reason to believe that this defense, the run stop, will improve just from that alone. But just how good can those 2022 sophomores be this year? Because the improvement from freshman to sophomore year, I think, is going to determine the defensive success for Texas A&M. Walter Nolan, Shamar Stewart, Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy, who didn't play last year, who is actually playing now, hopeful for him and DJ Hicks to get in there and make some noise. Ian I. White, Malik Silla. How good can these guys get in their second year? We know linebacker is not a major strength on this team, but we can rest on the fact that we have two very experienced leaders at that position. So if this defensive line improves, the whole defense is going to improve. Pass rush wasn't there last year. It should be there this year coming from the D-line. So personnel-wise, I don't think this team has a choice but to improve. But will they improve enough? Now, coaching. And I think there's a lot of reason for hope with the coaching as well. You've ever heard of the year two bump? A lot of times when a coach comes in, there is a transition year. There's a communication barrier, a language barrier, terminology. These are all new aspects to a team whenever a new coach is acquired. They have to learn each other. The players, the coaches have to learn their personnel. The players have to learn what the coaches want and how to satisfy and make those coaches happy. There's a lot of learning to do when there's a new coach in the house. So Adazio and DJ Durkin were both first-year coaches in pivotal aspects of the team. Defensive coordinator, offensive line. They're both in year two. Expectations have been set. They know their personnel. The terminology should be learned by now, however that changed, whatever the language was, that should all be known by this team now. So you get the year two bump in those two critical aspects of the team. And then I don't have to tell you guys about Bobby Petrino jumping onto this team. We know a lot more of that by now than we did a couple months ago. Bobby's calling the plays. Jimbo's taking the CEO role, which I think as much as obtaining Bobby as your offensive coordinator helps this team even more. I think having Jimbo as the bird's eye view coach that a head coach should be in today's day and age, walking from position group to position group, as we've seen in the clips of practice that we've gotten, he's more able to diagnose this team as a whole rather than laser focusing in on his quarterbacks and the offense. And the game management should improve. Time and time again over the last few years, there have been clock management issues, timeouts wasted, not getting the play calls in time, delays of game. That should all be at least somewhat remedied with a head coach with the bird's eye view rather than a focus on the offense. So I think coaching should improve. This team has obviously had plenty of room to improve last year by record, by play, the level of play, coaching, experience, youth growing up. There is not an aspect on this team that should not improve in 2023. So my question is, can this team overcome the hurdles that are the habit of losing and just a very difficult schedule? More than any other year, I think it is so important for this team to go out and win the games they're supposed to. Those are the games that you should consider must win on the year. Now, you go lose to Alabama, you lose to LSU, you lose at Tennessee, even losing at Ole Miss. I think some of that should still be expected just because of the way this schedule lines up. Those are hard road tests. But I think they're going to win a couple of them. Now, I'm going to predict my win-loss record on the year later this week, so look out for that video. But right now, I'm telling you guys, this is going to be an improved football team. Realistically speaking, I would tell you if I had major reasons for concern. Now, there are still areas where the team might not be upper echelon relative to the rest of the SEC. Maybe the running back room is going to be a little bit slow out the gates because you're replacing such a major piece in A-Chain. Maybe the quarterback's going to take a few games to get into his rhythm. Maybe this defense is still a year away from being a top 10 defense in the country. But damn it if this team's not going to improve everywhere. So guys, look out for my win-loss projection on the year coming out later this week. I'm ready to make it. I've been thinking, I've been going back and forth. There are a couple games that I've been iffy on. I think one that I'm going to chalk up as a loss is that Tennessee road game. I just think that's a really difficult environment. Not only Neyland Stadium itself, but just the way it shakes out on the schedule, just super difficult. What do you guys think on that? What do you guys think about this team's improvement as a whole? How good can they be? I will see you guys tomorrow in my next daily video. This is the last week of daily videos. This is the last week of fall camp because we're into week 1 next week. I told you guys, daily weekday videos throughout fall camp. So look out for my win-loss projection video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks and gig 'em.